Emotionally inaccessible people are not born. They are forged. They are the product of specific, difficult lessons that build a fortress around the self, an architecture of defense against the games, pressures, manipulations, and expectations of others. This state is not an accident of personality. It is not a flaw to be corrected. It is a strategy learned and honed in the unforgiving laboratory of human interaction. It is the deliberate cultivation of an internal distance, a space where the emotional currents of the world can be observed but not felt, analyzed but not absorbed. This is not about being broken. It is about refusing to be broken again. Emotional inaccessibility is not a weakness. It is a calculated response to a world that weaponizes vulnerability. It is a shield, not a void. The emotionally accessible individual offers open pathways for others to enter, trusting in the goodwill of the traveler. The emotionally inaccessible individual has sealed those pathways after repeated, hostile incursions. They have concluded, through rigorous and painful experimentation, that an open gate is an invitation for plunder. These dark lessons are not learned in a single event. They are absorbed over years of observation and direct experience. Each betrayal, each instance of misplaced trust, each emotional investment that yielded a negative return serves as a block in the wall. The process is gradual, methodical, and deeply personal. It is the slow, painstaking construction of an internal stronghold, built one painful realization at a time. The work takes years because true fortification is not a reaction. It is an adaptation. It requires observing patterns in others and, more importantly, in oneself. It demands the extermination of hope where hope has proven to be a liability. The result is a person who becomes difficult to read. Their emotional baseline is flat. Their reactions are measured. They do not offer the easy tells of joy, anger, or despair that others use to gauge and influence them. Their face becomes a mask, not of deception, but of neutrality. Their words become instruments of precision, not vessels of feeling. They are, therefore, more difficult to manage. You cannot pull a lever that is not there. You cannot appeal to a sentiment they have deliberately quarantined. You cannot blackmail them with the threat of emotional withdrawal because they have already withdrawn themselves. This state creates a dual perception in others. They are respected for their composure, their apparent stability, their refusal to be drawn into drama. They seem solid, unshakable. They are also feared. People fear what they cannot understand and what they cannot control. The inability to provoke an emotional reaction, the failure to find a vulnerability, the sense that one is interacting with a calm analytical surface, this is profoundly unsettling to those who navigate the world through emotional manipulation. They are respected for their strength and feared for their imperviousness. Machiavelli understood the foundation of this defensive posture. He wrote, "It is a common fault of men not to reckon on storms in fair weather." The meaning is direct. People are fundamentally unprepared for adversity when things are good. They operate on the assumption of continued peace and goodwill, projecting their current comfort into an indefinite future. The emotionally inaccessible person has learned the opposite, to reckon on storms at all times. They do not trust the calm. They see it as an interval, a time to repair defenses and watch the horizon. Fair weather is not a promise of safety. It is an opportunity to prepare for the inevitable storm. This is not pessimism. It is realism, purchased at great cost. This realism is built upon a series of lessons. The first is the most fundamental. Dark lesson number 1. Expectation is the root of all emotional distress. This is the foundational lesson. A person opens themselves emotionally because they expect a specific return. They expect loyalty for their loyalty. They expect honesty for their honesty. They expect care for their care. They expect the energy they project outward to be reflected back with equal or greater intensity. This is a transactional error. The world does not operate on a ledger of emotional fairness. Other people are not bound by your unspoken contracts. They will take what you offer and respond according to their own nature, their own needs, and their own agenda. The pain of betrayal is not caused by the act of disloyalty itself. It is caused by the shock of a violated expectation. You expected one thing, you received another. The gap between those 2 points is the measure of your suffering. The dark lesson teaches you to sever the link between your actions and your expectations of others' reactions. You act according to your own code, your own principles, your own objectives. The response of the other person is simply data, not your reward or punishment. When you give loyalty, you do it because it is part of your character, not because you expect it back. If it is not returned, you do not feel betrayed. You simply have new, useful information about the other person. You have confirmed their nature. You recalibrate your assessment of them and adjust your strategy accordingly. The emotional injury is minimal because there was no emotional wager in the first place. When you offer help, you do it because you choose to, not because you expect gratitude or reciprocity. If you are met with indifference or entitlement, you do not feel used. You observe the response and update your understanding of that individual's character. You learn. This single shift from expectation to observation is the first major step in building an emotional defense. It cauterizes the wound that sentimentality constantly reopens. You stop being a participant in a hopeful exchange and become an observer of human behavior. Your emotional stability is no longer contingent on the unpredictable and often self-serving actions of others. It is anchored in your own choices and your own analysis. You are no longer gambling, you are gathering intelligence. This makes you colder, but it also makes you stronger and vastly more difficult to hurt. This leads directly to the second, harsher lesson. Dark lesson number 2. The vast majority of human connection is transactional, not relational. People do not seek you out for who you are. They seek you out for what you provide. This provision can be material, emotional, social, or intellectual. They connect with you because you make them feel good, because you offer them status, because you solve a problem, or because you alleviate their boredom. They are drawn to your utility. The moment the provision ceases, the connection weakens or dissolves. The friend who was always there when you were paying for the drinks vanishes when you are not. The partner who adored your emotional support becomes distant when you require support of your own. The colleague who valued your insight ignores you when you no longer have a direct impact on their project. This is not a moral failing on their part. It is human nature, operating on a principle of maximum efficiency and benefit. To lament this is to lament that water flows downhill. It is a waste of emotional energy. The emotionally accessible person grieves this reality. They call it superficiality or use. They feel a sense of loss and injustice, believing a sacred, unconditional bond has been broken. They are wrong. There was no sacred bond. There was a transaction, and its terms expired. The person learning the dark lessons accepts this as a fundamental principle of social physics. They no longer invest in the person, they assess the transaction. They ask themselves, what do they want from me? What function do I serve? How long is this arrangement likely to be mutually beneficial? This analytical approach allows them to engage with people on a functional level without becoming personally entangled in the outcome. They can be a good friend, a supportive partner, or a helpful colleague. But they harbor no illusions that this connection is based on some intangible, eternal quality of their soul. They understand that their value to others is conditional. This understanding prevents them from over-investing emotionally in connections that are based on utility. It creates a necessary distance. They can appreciate the transaction for what it is, enjoy it while it lasts, and disengage without personal injury when it concludes. They are not surprised when people leave. They are only surprised if they stay after the utility has vanished. This to them is the rare and interesting anomaly. By viewing relationships through this transactional lens, they immunize themselves against the pain of abandonment and the disappointment of conditional affection. They interact, they observe, they assess, and they move on, all without exposing their core to the transactional nature of the world. Write in the comments if you have seen such lessons in your experience. Machiavelli's understanding of power was rooted in his understanding of human motivation. He wrote, "Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved." This is not an endorsement of tyranny. It is a cold calculation of reliability. Love is fickle, conditional, and dependent on a constant supply of pleasing qualities. Fear is primal and constant. It is based on a respect for power and consequence. In the context of emotional inaccessibility, the lesson is that earning love makes you vulnerable. Earning respect through strength and self-containment makes you secure. This leads to the third lesson, which builds upon the first two. Dark lesson number 3. Your vulnerability will be used against you. This is not a possibility, it is a certainty. It is a law of power dynamics. Any weakness you reveal, any insecurity you confess, any past trauma you share will be cataloged by those around you. It may not be used immediately, it may be stored for months or years. But in a moment of conflict, in a negotiation, in a situation where the other person seeks leverage, that vulnerability will be deployed. The confidant who listened with such empathy will remind you of your deepest fear to win an argument. The partner who swore to protect your secrets will use them as a weapon during a breakup. The friend you trusted with your story of failure will subtly reference it to position themselves as more competent. This is not because everyone is evil. It is because, when pressed, people will use any tool at their disposal to gain an advantage or to inflict pain. Your exposed emotional state is the easiest and most effective tool they can wield. It requires no physical effort, only a sharp memory and a willingness to strike where you are softest. The emotionally open person sees this as the ultimate betrayal. They are shocked and wounded that something shared in trust could be turned into a weapon. Their pain is immense because it combines the original wound with the new wound of its malicious use. The person learning the dark lessons understands this dynamic implicitly. They learn to practice strategic disclosure. They do not lie about their history, but they do not offer it up for public consumption. They keep their insecurities, their doubts, and their deepest pains under lock and key. They present a surface of competence and control. This is not about being inauthentic, it is about emotional security. They understand that a story of past suffering does not create a bond with most people. It provides them with a roadmap to your emotional control panel. By keeping this map to themselves, they make themselves impossible to blackmail emotionally. You cannot use a vulnerability that you do not know exists. This deliberate withholding of personal pain is a cornerstone of emotional inaccessibility. It is a conscious decision to not hand ammunition to potential adversaries. It creates a smooth, hard exterior with no handholds for manipulators to grip. The person becomes a black box. The inputs and outputs can be observed, but the internal mechanics remain private and protected. If you recognize yourself in these lessons, please like it. Dark lesson number 4, emotional displays are a sign of weakness and a loss of control. In any high-stakes environment, a boardroom, a negotiation, a family crisis, the person who loses control of their emotions loses. An outburst of anger, a flood of tears, a display of panicked fear, these are all signals to an adversary. They signal that you are overwhelmed, that your rational judgment is compromised, and that you can be provoked and steered. Anger reveals your frustrations and what you truly desire but cannot attain. It shows an opponent exactly which buttons to push to make you act rashly. Sadness and tears signal your points of injury and your attachments, offering a clear target for anyone wishing to inflict pain or extract a concession. Fear shows what you are desperate to avoid, giving an adversary a powerful lever of control. The person learning the dark lessons masters the art of the neutral expression. They internalize the principle that the only emotion one should ever display strategically is calm. Calm is unsettling to an opponent. It signals that you are not intimidated, that their attacks are having no effect, and that you are operating from a position of intellectual clarity and strength. It denies them the feedback they need to adjust their tactics. They are fighting in the dark against an opponent who can see perfectly. This is not about suppression. Suppression is a violent internal struggle that eventually bursts forth. This is about detachment. The person learns to observe their own emotional reactions as if they were happening to a stranger. They feel the spark of anger, acknowledge it, analyze its source, and let it go without giving it external expression. They feel the pull of sadness, identify its cause, and file it away for private review, not public display. This practice, repeated over thousands of instances, forges an unshakable composure. The person becomes a master of their own internal state. They separate the feeling of an emotion from the action of expressing it. This separation creates a profound distance between their inner world and their outer presentation. Others see only a calm, controlled surface, an individual who is impossible to provoke or read. This emotional discipline is not coldness for its own sake. It is a tactical advantage in every human interaction. It preserves your power, protects your position, and grants you the clarity to act while others are merely reacting. This principle of control is echoed in Machiavelli's advice on managing one's affairs. The main foundations of every state, new states as well as ancient or composite ones, are good laws and good arms. For the individual, the state is the self. The good laws are your personal code, your principles, your strategic thinking. The good arms are your ability to defend yourself. Emotional discipline is your primary weapon and your strongest armor. Without it, your internal state is lawless and defenseless, open to invasion and occupation by the will of others. This brings us to the fifth, more cynical lesson. Dark lesson number 5. People hear what they want to hear and see what they want to see. You can present the most logical argument backed by indisputable facts, and it will be utterly discarded if it conflicts with a person's preconceived notions or emotional desires. Their perception of reality is not a clean window. It is a lens browned and colored by their biases, their ego, their hopes, and their fears. They are not listening to what you are saying. They are listening for confirmation of what they already believe. To invest emotionally in the process of convincing others is a fool's errand. It leads to endless frustration. You will exhaust yourself trying to reason with the unreasonable, trying to show truth to those who are willfully blind. The emotionally accessible person believes in the power of sincerity and truth. They believe that if they just explain their feelings or their position clearly enough, the other person will understand. They are repeatedly shocked and hurt when the other person twists their words, ignores their evidence, and caricatures their position. The person who has absorbed this dark lesson stops trying to manage the perceptions of others. It is an impossible and draining task. Instead, they focus on two things: clarity of their own understanding and strategic communication. They no longer speak to be understood in a deep emotional sense. They speak to achieve an objective. They choose their words not based on how accurately they reflect their inner feelings, but on how likely they are to produce the desired result from the listener. They might simplify a complex truth, omit a detail that would trigger an emotional reaction, or frame a request in the language of the other person's self-interest. This is not deception. It is a pragmatic acceptance of the limits of communication. It is the understanding that you cannot force-feed a truth to someone who is determined to believe a lie. This creates a significant emotional distance. The person no longer feels the need to be seen or validated by others. Their sense of truth is internal. They are not wounded when they are misunderstood because they expect to be misunderstood. They see the other person's biased interpretation not as a personal affront, but as a predictable data point about that person's cognitive and emotional filters. This frees them to communicate with a cold, objective-focused precision, unburdened by the futile desire for true communion. Write in the comments which lesson seems to you the most accurate. Dark lesson number 6. Attachment is the source of all manipulation. To be attached to a person, an outcome, or an object is to give a handle to the world by which you can be moved. The more you want something, the more power you grant to anyone who can give it to you or take it away. This is the fundamental mechanism of all manipulation. Want the approval of a parent? You will bend your life to their will. Want to keep a romantic partner from leaving? You will tolerate behavior you know is unacceptable. Are you attached to your reputation as a nice person? You will be unable to say no, set boundaries, or take necessary but unpopular actions. Are you attached to a specific career goal? You will compromise your principles to appease a boss who holds the keys to that promotion. The person learning this lesson does not eliminate desire. That is impossible. Instead, they practice the art of strategic non-attachment. They learn to want things without needing them. They cultivate the internal fortitude to walk away from any deal, any relationship, any situation that costs them their integrity or their autonomy. Their mantra becomes, "I am prepared to lose this. I am prepared to lose this job. I am prepared to lose this relationship. I am prepared to lose this argument. I am prepared to lose the approval of these people." This is not a bluff. It is a deeply held conviction cultivated through mental rehearsal and a clear-eyed assessment of worst-case scenarios. They build a life where their identity and security are not dependent on any single person or outcome. Dark lesson number 7. Your inner world is yours alone, and it can never be truly shared or understood. This is the final seal on the emotional fortress. It is the realization that the entirety of your consciousness, your memories, the precise texture of your feelings, the intricate web of your thoughts is fundamentally untranslatable. You can try to explain it. You can use words, art, or actions. But the receiver will always be interpreting your signal through their own unique, unshareable consciousness. They cannot feel your pain. They can only imagine it, and their imagination is a poor substitute for your reality. They cannot understand the depth of your conviction. They can only observe its effects. The emotionally accessible person spends their life fighting this truth. They search for a soulmate, a person who will finally understand them completely. This search is a source of constant striving and perpetual disappointment. They feel a profound loneliness every time they fail to make a perfect connection. Every time their deepest feelings are met with a well-intentioned but inadequate response. They are entirely self-contained. They are polite, perhaps even engaging on the surface. But underneath, the gates to their inner world are closed and locked, not out of fear, but out of a final, complete understanding of the nature of consciousness itself. A few years ago, I was managing a project with a significant budget overrun. A senior executive, a man known for his aggressive tactics, called me into his office. The room was deliberately staged for intimidation. I was seated in a low chair, while he sat high behind a massive desk. He did not begin with facts or figures. He began with a personal attack, referencing a different, earlier project of mine that had faced public criticism. He spoke in a calm, condescending tone, detailing the supposed humiliation I must have felt, the damage to my reputation. His intent was clear: to destabilize me, to make me emotional, to put me on the defensive before the real negotiation even began. He was using a past vulnerability as a weapon, just as the third lesson dictates. I felt the flash of anger. The instinct was to defend myself, to correct his narrative, to show that I was not ashamed. But the lessons were in place. I detached. I observed the anger as a chemical reaction, a piece of data. I did not express it. Instead of defending my past, I kept my face neutral and waited for him to finish. When he was done, there was a silence. He was expecting a reaction, anger, justification, anything. I gave him nothing. After a moment, I said, calmly, "The budget for the current project is the topic. Let us examine the revised cost analysis on page 4. His entire strategy collapsed. He had no follow-up because his entire plan was predicated on an emotional response that never came. The conversation immediately shifted to the facts of the project. His attempt to establish dominance through psychological manipulation had failed. I was not his emotional equal. I was a problem to be solved. In that moment, I did not need his respect or his understanding. I needed his signature on the revised budget. By remaining inaccessible, by refusing to play his game, I controlled the frame of the interaction. He had tried to make it about my feelings. I made it about the numbers. I left the office with the approved budget. The conclusion was simple: emotional control is a prerequisite for strategic success. This entire philosophy of self-possession and clear-eyed analysis of the world is captured by Machiavelli in a final, powerful statement. For the great majority of mankind are satisfied with appearances as though they were realities, and are often more influenced by the things that seem than by those that are. The interpretation is stark. Most people live in a world of surfaces, feelings, and perceptions. They react to how things seem, not how they are. The person who understands this, who can detach from appearances and operate on the level of cold reality, holds a supreme advantage. They are not swayed by the theater of emotion and social posturing. They see the hidden machinery. The person who internalizes these 7 dark lessons undergoes a profound transformation. They are not becoming a monster or an empty shell. They are becoming something else entirely. They become more stable. Their emotional state is no longer a ship tossed on the waves of others' moods and actions. It is a lighthouse built on the rock of self-sufficiency. They become calm. By expecting nothing, by understanding the transactional nature of the world, and by mastering their own reactions. Chapter 2. The victory in that conference room was, in retrospect, a simple affair. It was an exercise in applied physics, a matter of understanding leverage and pressure points. My superior sought to engage an emotional circuit to trigger a response of fear or deference, and found the wiring had been deliberately severed. You cannot pull a lever that is not there. The outcome was as predictable as gravity. But such sterile environments, with their clear rules and transactional logic, are not the true proving grounds. They are merely the final examinations. The real education, the unforgiving laboratory where these lessons were first isolated and understood, is far more intimate and chaotic. It is the domain of what the emotionally accessible call love and friendship. It is here, in the theater of personal connection, that the most catastrophic errors in judgment are made. The single greatest miscalculation of the hopeful human is the belief that the laws of power are suspended by affection. They believe the physics of self-interest dissolves in the warmth of intimacy. This is the great transactional error. It is the flawed hypothesis that personal relationships operate on a separate, higher ledger, one of grace, unconditional support, and mutual self-sacrifice. The emotionally accessible individual enters these bonds with an open manifest, declaring all their assets and liabilities, their strengths and their deepest insecurities. They do this under the assumption that their partner in the transaction will honor this vulnerability, that they will guard it as their own. They expect loyalty, they expect honesty, they expect care. They are, in essence, handing ammunition to a potential adversary and trusting them not to use it. History, both personal and political, demonstrates this to be a losing strategy. As Machiavelli observed, "Because men are wicked, love is broken at every opportunity for their own utility." The architecture of my own internal fortress was not designed in a boardroom. It was built brick by painful brick in the ruins of such miscalculations. I can isolate the precise moment one of the foundational walls was laid. It was not a grand betrayal played out for an audience, but a quiet, clinical demonstration of social physics. I was with a person to whom I had granted significant access. Let us call her Ilara. In a moment of perceived safety, born of a long shared history and the attendant illusion of unconditional trust, I had confessed a deep-seated professional anxiety. It was a fear of being perceived as indecisive, a ghost from an early career failure that I had worked methodically to exorcise. I articulated the shape of this fear, its texture, its origin. I was, in effect, handing her a map to the most vulnerable citadel within my inner world. It was a transactional error of the highest magnitude. I had given a gift with no expectation of return, believing the act of giving was its own reward. Months passed. The data point was filed away, by her and by me. Our relationship, like all relationships, eventually encountered a point of friction. A disagreement over some now irrelevant matter of future plans. The discussion grew heated. Her arguments failed to find purchase. Frustrated, unable to secure the outcome she desired through logic, she reached for a different tool. "This is why no one trusts you to make a final call," she said, her voice calm, the words delivered with surgical precision. "You just go in circles. You're terrified of making a choice." The strike was perfect. It was not an outburst of anger. It was a calculated deployment of a previously acquired weapon. She had taken the map I had given her and used it to lead a hostile incursion directly to the heart of the citadel. The objective was not to win the argument, but to destabilize my position, to wound me into compliance. In that moment, I felt no shock of betrayal. The emotional response that she had anticipated, the hurt, the anger, the defensive protest, did not materialize. Instead, a profound and chilling clarity descended. It was the dispassionate lucidity of a scientist watching a hypothesis be confirmed by irrefutable experiment. The input, shared vulnerability, had produced the predictable output, weaponization for leverage. The system worked exactly as designed. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I simply looked at her and saw not a partner, but a strategist, one who had just revealed her operational doctrine. The transaction had been assessed. The terms had expired. "I see," I said. That was the end of it. The conversation, and with it, the entire architecture of that connection was terminated. The pathway she had used was sealed, not with the hot anger of a wound, but with the cold, permanent concrete of a lesson learned. Another block in the wall. This is the origin story of the emotionally inaccessible. It is not one story, but 1,000 variations of the same experiment, repeated until the conclusion is undeniable. Vulnerability is not a bridge, it is a liability. Emotional displays are not a sign of authenticity, they are a forfeiture of power. The world does not suspend its rules for you. To the outsider, the observer, this state of being appears as loneliness. They look upon the fortress and see a prison. They imagine a cold, empty existence, a life devoid of the warmth of genuine connection. This is a fundamental misunderstanding of the objective. The emotionally inaccessible individual has not eliminated feeling. They have contained it. They have traded the volatile, unpredictable highs and lows of external validation for the stable, sovereign control of their inner world. The perceived cost of this isolation is a calculated expense. The pain of solitude is a known quantity. It is a steady, low-grade ache that can be managed, acclimated to, and even transformed into a source of strength. It is the quiet of the command center, the solitude of the sovereign. The pain of betrayal, however, is an unquantifiable risk. It is a rogue wave, a sudden cataclysm that can shatter your foundations and leave you exposed and defenseless. The pragmatic mind chooses the manageable cost over the catastrophic risk every time. You are no longer gambling. You are managing a portfolio of emotional risk, and you have chosen the most conservative, capital-preserving strategy available. This does not preclude all forms of connection. It simply redefines them. The pursuit of a genuine connection, that mythical fusion of souls where two become one, is abandoned as a fool's errand. Such a state, if it exists at all, is a temporary alignment of interests and emotional states, a mutually beneficial illusion that is fragile and subject to the slightest shift in circumstance. The inaccessible individual seeks something more durable: respect. They form alliances, not dependencies. They engage with others on the basis of utility, clear boundaries, and mutual comprehension of the transactional nature of the bond. These are the connections between two fortified states. They do not attempt to tear down their walls. Instead, they communicate from the ramparts. They trade goods, they form treaties, they may even coordinate defenses against a common threat. Their strength lies in the fact that each knows the other is, at all times, acting in their own self-interest. There is a profound honesty in this arrangement, an integrity that the sentimentalist, blinded by hope, can never achieve. You learn to appreciate the clean, cold mechanics of such relationships. There is no ambiguity. There is no hope to be dashed, no trust to be broken. The terms are understood. You are respected for your strength and feared for your imperviousness. People know that your word is a contract because it is not underwritten by the shifting sands of affection, but by the bedrock of self-interest. They know you will deliver precisely what you promise and that you will exact precisely what you are owed. This is the peace that lies on the other side of the dark lessons. It is not the joyful peace of the naive, but the quiet, unbreachable peace of the well-defended stronghold. You have cauterized the pathways for emotional incursions. You have learned that the only person you can rely on to guard your inner world is you. And you have become very, very good at it. The world outside may rage, its storms of passion, its betrayals, its manipulations, but within the fortress there is order, there is silence, there is control. As Machiavelli so rightly taught, fear is a far more reliable bond than love. For love is held by a chain of obligation which, because men are wicked, is broken at every opportunity for their own utility. But fear is held by a dread of punishment which never fails you. And the greatest fear you can instill in others is the fear that they have no power over you.